Welcome back to Scale Auto Guys Workbench. Today we're working on this AMT surfer van, the 77 Ford Econoline van. You can build either stock or custom or something in between. Take a look at the box here. It comes with a couple of surfboards. I really like the Firestone wide oval tires that come in this kit here. I had a set of those on my first car. They were pretty decent tires. So this is set up so that you can build it pretty much any way you want. If you have decals left over from another kit, you can make it into a service van or whatever. So here's a look at what comes in the box, and let me tell you, this box was chock full of parts. I took it out just to take a look at it last night, and I almost didn't get everything back in the box. So this comes with 140 parts. So let's take a look at them. First of all, here's the Econoline van body. It's all one piece. It's a little bit of flash to clean up, but not bad. It's pretty clean mold process done on this. Looks pretty good. Here's your one-piece interior tub with the doghouse here for where the engine sits. That needs a little bit of cleanup too. For this being an AMT kit, it's fairly clean. Now, one thing I've also noticed about this kit, and I'm sure that I'm correct on this, AMT made this kit and then they put it in a Coca-Cola sponsored box. They put it in the cruising van box, and now in the surfer van box. And that's totally cool. It gives you a whole bunch of different options on how to build it. You can have a whole fleet of these vans and not one of them be the same. So speaking of the tires, I didn't want to take them out of the bag or anything, but you can see they're pad printed Firestone wide ovals. Like I said, I had a set of these on my first car. They're pretty decent tires. So you got those, and you got stock Blackwall tires. I don't think they have a name brand on them. It's hard to tell through the plastic bag. They may have Firestone on them or something. We're doing this a little bit backwards from the way I normally do it. That's okay. Your two taillights here. These were pretty popular back in the 70s to put on vans, these little teardrop windows and such. Those would go back here like they have on the box art. And then full window glass all the way around. The first bag of plastic, it was huge. As you can see here, this has got quite a bit of flash here that we got to clean up. This is mainly your front and rear suspension parts. All hooked together here. Your seats, hood, some more interior parts it looks like. One of the surfboards, these look just like the same surfboards that they put in the Surfshark. So I'm going to have a ton of these surfboards here in just a little while. Here's the other surfboard and your roof rack pieces, so that you can put them on the put your surfboards up on the roof. With the next box of parts, get mostly engine parts here, fender flares, a little front air dam, wheel backs, A set of white wagon wheel rims. These were popular in the 80s, so if you wanted to go with that style. This is a little deeper dish than I think the tires can handle, but who knows, you could probably use those on another project. There's your frame. Single exhaust system, but that's not the only exhaust system available for this van. As you can see on the box art, they also have these chrome side pipes. And speaking of chrome, you get some 5-spoke mag wheels there. They're not quite Krager Super Sport knockoffs, but they're close. And then you get the custom grill and stock grill. You get 4 stock hubcaps. The other one is laying around here somewhere. It was off in the bag, so I don't know what happened to it. I had it right there, but it fell. And here's your chrome side pipes. These are a little short for this van. I would think that they should go down just a little bit further, about to just in front of the back tires. But let me see if I can come up with something with that. I don't know. But that's your 2 chrome trees. Here's your decal sheet. So these ones here, these decals over here for the surfboards. The rest of this is for the van. I noticed that they don't give you any gauge decals. That's fine, you can paint those in. Gives you a couple different license plate options, if I get this right side up. So you have options on your decals as well. And the very last thing is the instruction booklet. Pretty straightforward. Now, the one thing I did notice about this van on other builds that I've seen, the back end drooped down a little bit, so it was kind of saggy in the rear end. If you've watched my channel for a while, you've probably noticed that I don't really like when vehicles sit low in the back end. I like them to sit either level or slightly jacked up in the back end. Nothing too radical, but just slightly lifted. So if that's the case, when I get to that point in the construction, if I notice that it's a little saggy in the rear end, I'm going to have to boost that up, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to do it. So let's get some sub-assemblies together here, some of this flash cleaned up, and head over to the paint booth with some primer and get that applied. I'm thinking, because most of the builds that I've seen, the guys have used the Testors Extreme Lacquer Tangy Orange, I believe is what it was called. Well, I don't have any tangy orange, but I do have this Createx pearlized pearl tangerine, so I'm thinking about going with that. It may be a little too dark. I might change my mind yet. Let me think on this for a minute. I've got plenty of time to make up my mind to which color I'm going to paint the body. I do like the box art. I like the orange with the yellow decals, and I'd like to do something in that line, but I'm wondering if this orange is a little too dark for that. That's more of a, I don't even know what you would call that. That I did notice that the paints that the other guys are using, I did like the color, but I don't want to be a copycat. So let's think about that. Alright, let's get started on this. Let's get over to the paint booth, and I'll see you there. Alright fellas, remember, if you've watched my channel for a little bit, you might remember me telling you that you should always prime your vehicles. It can be the difference, literally, between a meh paint job and an awesome paint job. And let me show you what I mean by that. You just saw me put a coat of primer on this. And then after the primer cured, I looked at this and I was like, why didn't I see, whoops, why didn't I see these problems before? As I've said, the primer will make things stand out that you don't normally see. Like for instance, in the corner right here, and on the opposite corner, and around the back here on the edge, on both sides, well, there were mold lines there. They were really small, hard to see with the naked eye, but as soon as that primer went down on them, well, it magnified them. So you don't want mold lines like that in your body when you're putting your epic top coat on there, whatever it may be, because if it magnifies with the primer, it's going to magnify with your top coat as well, and that can really detract from the overall appearance of the model. So you want to shoot a coat of primer on there just so those kind of things will stand out, and you can take the time to fix them before you go on and put your top coat on. So with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and put a second coat of primer on this body, and then it will be full on ready for the top coat. I still haven't decided what color I'm going to make it. I was looking at doing the Createx Pearl Tangerine, and I may still go with that, or I may make up my mind eventually. Okay, well, let's get on the primer and get this step over with. So let's get started. One more thing. You may notice that I have toothpicks under the hood here, and there's a reason for that. I thought I would experiment with this idea with this particular build. I wanted to elevate the hood up a little bit so that I could get around the edges and show that there's a way that you can paint your body. Now, I get a lot of questions about this. A lot of guys paint their hoods separate from their bodies because the hoods stick shut. And I've come to realize that is an issue for some folks. I generally don't have that problem, but then again, I don't put multiple layers of paint on my bodies. I put just enough to give it the color I want and the consistency I want. As long as it's even color and even coverage, I'm good to go on that. So this is one way you can do it. It works well with this particular build. I don't know that it will work with every build, but we're going to give it a shot and see what happens. Oop, let's turn on the fan. Okay, now that I've got that primer applied, as you can see, no more mold line problems. Everything is smooth like it should be. Let this cure and we'll be ready for our top coat. Okay, fellas, if you're going to use the lifted rear end, you're going to need to use these two little blocks here, this one and this one. They are angled. Let me put that in my hand so you can see. They're angled on the bottom. So that means when you put them on, they're going to tilt one way or the other. In my test fitting, I discovered that they need to, when you put them in the slots back here, they need to tilt rearward in order to fit the springs. So your springs, excuse me, your springs have these little blocks on them. So they fit on the outside of the frame here into that little spot, and if you're just going to use the stock height, you just put it in like that and you just glue it in. If you're going to use the extended version, like I said, it needs to, I just touched up the paint on these so they're a little bit tacky still. They need to face rearward in order to engage the spring. Let me spin this around so you can see what I mean. So you got to put the notch. See how it's got a notch in it? You got to put that in this position here. Let me see if I can get it where you can see it, like this. Then when you put the spring in, put the forward one in, and then, because I'm not gluing it in yet, it's going to be a little difficult to fit it in, but kind of goes like that. So it lifts the rear end up just a smidge. And in the beginning of the video I mentioned that I had seen these where the back end looked like it was sagging down a little bit, and I was going to have to block it up. Well, it comes with the blocks, and there they are. That's how they fit, and it gives you about an 1/8 or 3/16 of an inch lift in the rear. So maybe even 1/4 of an inch in the rear. I dare say probably 3/16 because it does indent here a little bit. So that's how that works. So let's get on this rear axle. There are 5 pieces to it, not including the drive shaft. The drive shaft comes in a little later when you put in the engine. So got to do the rear suspension, front suspension yet. So let's get started. Okay, the suspension's all done. What I did when I painted this is I kind of messed up a little bit. I painted over pretty much all the parts. In these areas here, these little pins where your wheels go, don't put any paint on those if you can avoid it, because your rims and stuff, well, your wheels, I should say, to be more to the point, your wheels won't fit over that if there's paint on them. In addition to that, any surfaces that need to be glued, you should clear the paint from those areas so you have a good plastic on plastic bond and you don't have to worry about the paint getting in the way of the bond. Now back here I cleared off a little bit more paint than I probably should have, but that's okay, I can come back and touch that up. So in the meantime, the suspension is done. The next step is the wheels and tires, so we'll get on with those. Okay fellas, if you go by the directions here on this van build, it says to put the engine in first, and trust me, you need to put the engine in first. I didn't. I failed. And let me tell you, that's a tight fit. That is a tight fit in there. So now I'm going to have to take this piece back off in order to get in there and really kind of glue this in. So make sure you follow the directions. I got stupid and thought I knew what I was doing. Well, it bit me. Okay, let's get back to this. If I can get this back off of here. There we go. There we go. And honestly, removing this piece, it does give you a little bit more room, but this back here is so tight between where the cross member is and this brace that you have to really kind of work it to get that piece to fit in there, because the transmission mount has got to go in this little hole right here, and the nub on the transmission mount makes it difficult to get that in place. So let's see if I can get this back out of here so I can at least try to glue it in place. Yeah, that is tight. There we go. Alright, let me get this put back in there, and I'll be right back. Okay fellas, I finally got it in, got it glued down. Like I said, it's a real tight fit in there, so you have to wiggle and jiggle that engine into place. I also have the drive shaft installed now. So that's all glued in place, ready to go. We can move on to the next step, which I believe is doing the exhaust system, etc., etc. So let's get on that. It's one step closer to completion. Okay fellas, I know I installed these parts earlier. I had to take them off because in the directions I didn't catch it right away. It said to install the air cleaner intake and the dipstick, the oil fill tube, I guess, on this step here. Now, beyond that, the washer tank goes on this little block right here. But as you can see, I had it on there. I had to take it back off. With that in place, with the washer tank in place, and when you put this in place on the body, which it's not really very well marked, you just kind of have to guesstimate its location. As you can see, you see right where that little block is. Whoops. Right where the little block is. Well, the master cylinder sits right there too. And if you have the block in there, that pushes that side out quite a bit. So you can't get it to mate up with these that part of the fender. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in place. Let me push that battery back on there a little bit better. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and get this in place, and then I'm going to have to put that washer tank off over in this little cavity because it doesn't fit together like that. Now, I've watched a couple other guys build this van and the cruising van, and they don't show putting the radiator in. It's like a total mystery. It's laying on the bench and then it's installed. So they don't show the little debacle with that washer tank. That block should have been further over here instead of right there. So let me go ahead and get this put on, and we'll go from there. Finally sitting on its own wheels and tires. Got the interior finished. I got the dash detailed. I'm usually pretty bad at doing dashboards and such, but that didn't turn out too bad, all things considered. Everything under the hood is complete. I got to do a little bit of touch-up painting down here, but that's a little dot of paint, no big deal. So just got to finish up on the body work, and then the decals. I hate putting decals on. But I need to put a second coat of paint on the van body. It came out a little blotchy. It looked good when I was painting it. Oops, bumped you. Sorry. It looked good while I was painting it, but once it dried, it showed its true nature. And I'm afraid to show it to you. But you can see right in this area here, it's kind of thin where it's kind of darker here. So I got to go through and put a second coat on, and then we're on to finishing up the body. So let's get back over to the paint booth. I'm going to do a very light sanding on that body, and then we're going to shoot a second coat of paint on it. After that sets up, we're going to clear coat it and on with the remainder of the build. So I'll see you at the paint booth. Welcome back to the final on this 1977 Ford Econoline surfer van from AMT. This was an extremely fun build. It went together so easily. There was zero issues. There was no warp, very little flash. Everything went together just like it was supposed to, with one exception. As you can see, I have all the decals on here. There's 13 separate pieces per side, 2 on the hood. Well, there was 4 that went across the back here, and because of the door hinges and the door handle, I couldn't get those to lay flat for nothing. I tried everything I could, decal set, everything. I couldn't get those to lay down over top of those handles. I tried cutting them, and then the decal just split, and I said, well, it's going to have to go without the decals across the back. I did glue on the roof racks for the surfboards. You can see the surfboards here that I finished up. These decals are a little bit hard to get center lined. They're not horrible, but they are a little bit difficult. And like I said, there's 13 separate decals per side on this. The engine compartment, as I noted earlier, the engine compartment is a very tight squeeze, and you have to play with that a little bit to get that all to fit together if you follow the steps in the direction sheet. Now, however, if you go a different route, you can assemble it in different steps, and it'll make it a little easier for you. I decided not to go with the side windows like on the box art. I was going to do that, but I thought after I put the decal on there how that would interrupt that picture, and I like the picture just the way it is, so I didn't want to mess with that. All of the side marker lights, turn signals, tail lights, I put chrome metal foil behind them. Sorry for the jerkiness of the turntable here. I did that so that when I painted in the side markers and turn signals and stuff and applied the red plastic taillights, I'd have a reflective back on it. I was going to go with the chrome lake pipes, but I decided against that after I got it put together and kind of put them in place. I didn't like, they were too short. I didn't like them. So I went with the stock exhaust. But with the stock exhaust, if you put it in as per the direction sheet, it won't fit, and you have to cut it. I had to cut it just behind the muffler, cut the tailpipe off, and put it in as 2 pieces. So that's something that you should be aware of. If you put it in prior to attaching the floor to the frame, it'll drop right in if you're using a stock exhaust system. If you put it in as per the directions, then you have to wiggle it around the rear axle and a cross member, and it's too long, and there isn't enough space in there to kind of wiggle it around. So if you slice it, just, you know, cut it off right behind the muffler, you can put it in 2 pieces and it pops right in if you follow the directions. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, go ahead and click that thumbs up button. It tells the YouTube algorithm I'm doing a good job here. If you have any questions or comments, please write those in the comments section below, and I'll be happy to respond as soon as possible. Be sure to follow me on Facebook, and don't forget to check out my merchandise shop by following the link in the description box, or go to my channel and click on the shop button. If you want more videos like this one, make sure you hit that subscribe button below. Thanks for watching Scale Auto Guys Workbench, and I'll see you on the next build.